Welcome to the Grand Rapids Label video blog series. This is our quarterly series where we focus on innovation discussions as they apply to the industrial durable label space. I'm Bill Bergstrom with Grand Rapids Label. We are 140 years old here in 2024. So we're super proud of that. And we're in the label converting space. So we make labels. We are primarily in an industrial durable. We also do some direct food contact labeling, and which brings me to what we're talking about today, right? And that's an innovation discussion here with Dave Gawlak of American Systems Registrar. Now, if you're in the audience and you understand what a registrar is, you might say, man, why are we having a certification quality conversation and calling it an innovation discussion? Well, there are lots of reasons, and Dave is a tremendous resource and a 16+ year vet, right? 16 years maybe as a VP with ASR. So tons of experience surrounding the quality certification space, and we're innovation is always driving organizations forward, and things like quality discussions and quality systems underpin a lot of that opportunity. So I'm going to be quiet. Dave, welcome. A, B, thank you. Thanks for taking some time. Tell us, Dave, briefly a little bit about yourself, but also about ASR, right? Like, help us understand why we would be excited about positioning what ASR does as a foundation for innovation going forward.
Well, ASR started back in 98. We are accredited back in 1998, and we're also one of 40 certification bodies around the world that can audit to automotive standard. And we were formed back at that time by a group of 7 auditors. And we were developed because there was a need for certification for small business. And as everyone knows, in the United States, small business drives this country. It drives the tax base, drives industry, drives innovation, and creates new opportunities for people, throughout the world. So we're proud to be part of that in this country and be part of the small businesses, in North America. So, and we continue to have that same ownership group involved in our business today. Matter of fact, some of them still have their hats hanging on the hallway and do conduct audits. Some of them are still involved with writing committees with ISO 9 and some of the other standards that we cover. Not only do we do ISO, but we do 14,001 environmental, occupational health and safety, aerospace. We also do automotive, which I mentioned, and we do some CSI audits, which are integrated audits for technologies. It's a small part of our business, but we're involved with technology as well. And we want to thank you for this opportunity. A registrar, it's kind of old school name. It's kind of changed a little bit now. It's called certification. Compliance is used a lot today, so it's changed a little bit as far as naming and nomenclature and stuff. But no, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And again, we as Grand Rapids Label looks at the marketplaces that we want to be in. You guys end up being a great partner, right? As we look and take our automotive expertise and say, okay, how maybe do we want to apply this in the medical space, right? And understanding, the quality systems that underpin that vertical as they compare to the automotive vertical and it helps us be smartly innovative and go smartly into adjacent marketplaces and things like that. So thank you again for being here. So if you're a viewer of these in the past, when we talk about innovation, we do it on horizons. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about kind of the current state of the certification marketplace, right? Regardless of what marketplace you're in, or even if you're looking at environmental, kind of where we are today. and then we'll turn our eyes to kind of what's ahead. We'll look at a kind of a short term, maybe 1 or 2 years out. What's on your guys' horizon, Dave, ASR's horizon, sure. Again, as far as where you see the marketplace going and the value of the marketplace. Then we'll look just a little bit further out, maybe like 5 years, about just that far, and ask generally the same question. And hopefully the viewer walks away with some really nice ideas of saying, hey, maybe we should take this certification more seriously as we drive our business forward. Or, again, maybe there are tools almost within certifications that we're not leveraging that would help us be better going forward. So we'll start there. So fair enough?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certification over the years has changed quite a bit. It's less paper heavy. One of the things that people I hear a lot working with new organizations is that it's paperwork heavy, and that it doesn't have to be. And as the standards are developing and moving forward, they're keeping the end user in mind, and that's organizations that are putting quality systems in place. They want the end user to be successful. They want the end user to be innovative. They want the end user to be able to produce quality product within the supply chain, so that us, the people that are either purchasing a durable good or using a service, knows that they can count on it. Mm-hmm. Also, the certification also helps with managing companies. It can be used as an improvement tool within an organization. We're going through this now currently this past week with our own company. We're doing our own internal audits, and we've learned a couple areas that we can improve on, make our delivery better, improve our services, and also strengthen what we do internally and externally. Yeah. With our auditing staff and with our client base. But the market for certification has been pretty good over the last 5 years. We had our largest quarter last year, and we notice cycles in the industry. Right now, we're in a high growth period, but then comes the leveling off, yep. And then there'll be a slight downturn, and then it'll pick back up again. Worldwide, the predictions are more of a level. What's different about North America or United States is that the government's not involved with certification. In a lot of the countries overseas, it's almost mandatory to do business in that country. You must have a certificate. They have their hands in the accreditation bodies that give companies like us the license to do what we do. Basically. Okay,
I did not know that.
Yes, and so that's one of the differences, and that's why you see when you're dealing with maybe exporting to different countries, you might get requested, do you have this type of certification? Do you have this certification? And that's because it's one of their requirements overseas. So okay, but the market's good. We see a lot of companies who have taken the quality systems and ISO standards in place and have done some great things and wonderful things within their organizations and gone from 2 people working in a garage to opening up a brand new facility on Beltline and doing a lot of things locally with some of the local community groups and providing assistance. So it puts a smile on your face and it's good to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let me draw, or my first, maybe drawing a little bit of an arc to what you're talking about the cyclical nature. So sure. The printing industry specifically, the label industry specifically, was heavily disrupted from a supply chain standpoint coming out of COVID, right? Lots of us are going to continue to live in this pre-COVID, COVID, then post-COVID mentality for a while as our marketplaces kind of find their level. So risk mitigation through processes that organizations like ASR help companies like Grand Rapids Label have in place and audit against and so on and so forth is a massive value. Is that, I'll closed-ended question here, is that one of the reasons why you guys have been busy? Is some of that post-pandemic disruption and marketplace volatility that has existed and even still today is somewhat in place?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I've noticed, different industries were affected differently. and some are still struggling today, but there are other industries that have just gone nuts, gone crazy.
Mhm.
And I think going forward, because ISO 9 is going to go through a rewrite, which is the basis for 90% of the standards out there.
Sure.
So that's going to change everything, and you're going to see more attention to risk, and because COVID taught us a lot.
Right.
One of the things that I noticed was, one of the changes in 2015 with ISO with the standard was more management involvement, and the organizations that had the upper management involvement with their quality system seem to be more prepared to handle the situation with COVID
Okay.
in their industry and in their business. And you're going to probably see more emphasis on that moving forward, and also with risk and adjustments and audit durations based on a company's past history, more of that than what we used to see. I
Okay.
know automotive and aerospace are moving in that direction. It'll be a little bit more time consuming, as far as quoting and getting the right audit days to the organizations, but in the end, it'll be more effective.
Okay.
The time will be, better as far as usage with the auditor and with the organization. So we're not, spending time just trying to buy time to fill an audit schedule. So
Got it.
yeah, there's going to be some changes, but no, COVID, yeah, it opened our eyes. Remote auditing became a strength rather than a negative.
Yeah.
And interesting statistically, our nonconformance percentage went up on a remote audit versus on an on-site audit. It was higher.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It was a shock to me, but we also role played internally about how we conduct them, and they're actually more time consuming.
Yeah. Okay.
There's less travel, less expense involved, but there's more time on both ends. I think the organizations have to spend time preparing, having things ready, electronically, whether it's a electronic communication or some kind of presentation with documents, or cameras walking around a shop floor or that type of thing. So yeah, it's
interesting. Very interesting. So you've hinted when we've been chatting a little bit about maybe some changes coming, and that might be as good a jumping off point to our horizon conversation. I think you mentioned specifically automotive and aerospace a little bit. Again, the evolution of management involvement, if I'm hearing you correctly. Maybe expand on that a little bit, Dave, and we'll put it into that kind of first horizon. What's coming. Whether it's an organization like ours that has a long experience of being certified and IATF and 14,001 and our direct food contact stuff as well, or for the audience that's an organization thinking, hey, maybe we ought to go this route. What does the next couple of years look like? Maybe a few key bullet points in your mind about how certification will evolve, and even maybe a bit of its value from a risk mitigation standpoint.
Yeah, I think by improving the risk within an organization, I think you'll see there'll be more involvement, more process ownership with the individuals in the organization, rather than relying on one person. Because if you rely on one person and that something happens to that person, and we have this discussion internally all the time, what happens if something happens to you or you?
Yeah.
What happens to your work? What happens to the customer communication? What happens with our delivery? Those are things that have to be considered. And I think ISO, they started it in 2015, and they'll strengthen it as we move forward, where, there used to be the quality manager, the contact rep, and it's still there. You can still use one, but that thought process is slowly being eliminated, or not eliminated, but removed from the standard. They don't require it. It's nice to have when an auditor shows up in an organization to have someone to talk to.
Yeah, that point person. Yeah.
But not necessarily has to be the know-all of every process within the organization. Going through our internal audit, I learn from working with people in processing, how they issue the certificate, what's all involved, how many how many times do they have to review something to make sure it's perfect before it leaves, all the documentation and responsibilities that are necessary to put our stamp of approval on a certificate, and you learn from those different parts of the job when you're involved more. And I think moving forward with ISO, I think it's a good step to have that, because the more there's more buy-in within an organization for quality, it makes it easier. You know, it makes it easier to communicate with people. It makes it easier to reach your goals and what you want within the company. You can focus on what you do best within an organization and bring those strengths into other areas maybe that are struggling within your company, because we all know what our weaknesses are and what our strengths are. And, you know, that's what a quality system works and how it evolves. But ISO's, you know, it'll be hard, but they'll be working on trying to move those thoughts and ideas into, you know, the next series of revisions as they move forward.
Yeah, that's interesting. Our own organization, you know, we have a quality department, and then there's a you know a responsibility tree just within that or that department. Let alone obviously how it connects with the broader hierarchy of Grand Rapids and structure of Grand Rapids label. That's interesting to hear that you know, you guys as auditors and ISO in general embracing, my word here, but almost more of a decentralization of the concept of a quality system. That's
now I do have to be careful.
That's not necessarily the way that's ingrained in all of our heads. That's right. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, especially some of us old hats that have been involved with it for a while. And I do have to be careful, because I'm speaking in generalities. Every standard,
that's okay.
You know, they have their own technical responsibilities built within their own standard. Like automotive is a different world than aerospace, and the same thing with medical. So I do have to be careful when I say that. But ISO is 9001 is kind of the base of those standards.
Sure.
And they add their technical specifications on top of that.
Sure. We always look at it that way. We say, okay, well, we have this. How much more complicated is getting to, you know, aerospace or medical? Are we 90% of the way there? Are we 80%? What's the number? Yeah, I can appreciate what you're saying. So, you know, again, like play that forward, and we didn't really talk about this prior to hitting record on our call here, but you know, quality and ISO and what you guys are doing in the broader conversation of, say, investment in manufacturing in North America, right? Onshoring, all of those trends that take time, right? You know, gosh, you know, chip shortage results where now we're building all these plants inside the United States, right? And we can have the national security conversation. It doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is, you know, like, hey, if I'm an organization thinking about reinvestment, you know, or investment in the United States, or maybe I'm in an M&A mindset, right? I want to take advantage of market conditions, and I'm certified, but maybe a target I'm looking at isn't. You know, unpack it as an organization is looking maybe even more like 3 or 4 years down the road. Dave, is that a fair question? Are you guys, how do those kinds of conversations spin around inside ASR and what you guys are doing and marketing and so on and so forth?
Yeah, we look at you know, our product is the standards, and we look at and measure it, the growth there. But we do notice, you know, conversations with organizations, and sometimes they share their struggles and sometimes they don't. But being able to handle the demands of durable goods or services that you offer seem to fluctuate more than ever. You know, there's no, you know, the seasonality, it doesn't exist unless you're a farmer today. Basically, you're growing food. There was more of an impact than what there is now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the struggles is, you know, from from talking to different organizations is being able to handle that demand at certain times and being
Okay.
able to handle those controls and what do they do. It is basically managing the risks internally. You know, how much product should they produce, or when should they produce it? How much should they, purchasing, how much should purchasing
Yeah.
make at this point in time so that they control the flow and don't miss an opportunity. But yeah, we've noticed our biggest growth with ASR over the last year has been in medical device, aerospace industry. Have
Okay.
been in 9001 in general has been consistent,
Okay.
every year. So we look at the medical industry and their growth. Yeah, we've had a little bit of the technology, the lithium plants, the
Yep.
energy companies, and then also some growth and also in the green standards like environmental has also shown a lot of interest in a lot of growth in the last year too. So I think moving forward, there's going to be probably more emphasis on that.
Yep.
Energy, the carbon footprint, the environmental effects that we have on our surroundings, and it's becoming a bigger issue than what it was probably 10 years ago.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
More
Yeah.
awareness.
Yeah. The environmental conversation is an interesting one, right? What I'm capturing, or what I'm, and again, this is as much a question as anything else. As an organization that takes their environmental efforts seriously, like we've been 14,001 for a long time. We're recently landfill free, right? We're very interested. I was actually just talking with somebody about it, like not greenwashing, right?
Right.
And just having environmental practices be a marketing jargon as opposed to actually underpinning your organization. Maybe one of the last things that, looking forward, 14,001 as a certification that's around, environmental standards. You're talking about growth there. Does that become a tool that again, it kind of helps an organization police against just talking about it as opposed to actually practicing good standards? I know it's a closed-ended question, but
So we've had done some research, and probably the biggest financial impact on an organization is 14,001.
really,
Because just think about waste in general. The ideas of we're getting rid of this, we're buying too much of this, we have this much scrap. They find uses for that, maybe reusing it, recycling it without just throwing it away and
sure,
paying for a service to take it. So all of a sudden they have that savings there. So those are reusing. The big thing back in the big manufacturing with metals is recycling the oils and the fluids that are involved in production. So those types of things really can have an impact on an organization financially right away.
yeah.
Without even reaching even more forward, towards how they affect the air and the outside water and that type of thing around you. So
That's interesting. That's a usable statement there, right there. That the maybe the quickest financial impact of certification is with 14,001 of all the certifications that you do, Dave. I would not have guessed that either.
yeah.
So that's awesome. Well, very quickly here, we're already 15, 20, almost 20 minutes into our conversation. So again, thanks a ton for your time. Help us kind of tie it up here a little bit. Dave, if you're a company watching this video and it kind of intrigued by what you're saying, maybe sum it up a little bit, right? What kinds of questions could a company be asking of themselves as it applies to the value of certification, right now? Let's pretend I'm an organization that hasn't gone that route. What should I be asking myself to determine or help me determine the value of going down the road, right? It does take some time, and it does take some documentation, and it does take dedication and those types of things. 2 or 3 quick statements, 1 or 2 quick statements. Why is that of value?
It creates accountability and respect within your organization, and that's created with understanding with a common goal with ISO that it creates in your quality statement, in your scope, what you're going to do internally in your organization.
That sums it
Was
up,
that more
doesn't
than
it?
one or two statements?
No, yeah, no, that's great. Well, but the simplicity is there, right? And
Right.
and you know, coming from an organization that does carry those standards, we really do rely on it all the time. I mean, we go
Yeah.
back to our process controls all the time, and that is a real benefit. It's clarifying, and I think that's a part of what you're saying. I love that your website talks about risk mitigation, training, continuous learning, all those things that make for a great culture, and we would agree, Dave. So,
Great.
gosh, like I said, you know, time flies.
It does.
And thank you very, very much again for
You're
doing
welcome.
this.
Thanks for
Our
having me.
certifications are, yeah, you bet. Our certifications are something we're very proud of. You guys are great partners when you come see us. Thank you for that. And
Thank
looking
you.
forward to what's to come.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Thank you
Have a
for the
good one.
viewer. Hopefully that's helpful. Dave with ASR, look him up. Great guy, great company, and appreciate you watching. Thanks.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.